So good morning. I'm Massimo Nava. I am editorialist of Corriere della Sera. I have the honor to preside this round table about security and peace. We choose to speak in English, but everybody is free to have some quotation in French or in Italian. Security and peace is a wide theme. As you can imagine, as journalist, and I was a former war correspondent in many parts of the world, I follow for Corriere della Sera many conflicts. So, unfortunately, my duty is not to give you good news. We assist multiplication of conflicts in the world, violence, terrorism, and the panorama of the big powers is totally changing in the last few years, and particularly in the last few months. The position of the United States is well known. China is growing as military power, and Europe have more and more problem. I think that in this framework, as a great Italian intellectual, Antonio Gramsci said, we have the pessimist of the reason, but we have to use the optimism of the will. And I think that the role of the women is, first of all, to have optimism, hope, and also and this is another consequence of my long experience in the war fields, is that women could make an effort of transparency and coherence. The decision makers, most of them are men, sometimes they make a great speech, great promise, but we have to stimulate a more coherence. Look, for instance, the weapon market, or all the question of peace and security. If we don't make an effort to have more transparency in these questions, we don't reach any result. I want to start also to quote it, and I quoted in French just to have an idea of what I like to say is the last speech about environment from French President Emmanuel Macron. Personne ne peut dignement aujourd'hui prétendre de lutter avec efficacité contre le terrorisme pour la paix dans le monde et ne s'attaquant pas à la guerre contre le réchauffement climatique. J'aimerais bien traduire personne ne peut dignement. Qu'est-ce que veut dire dignement? C'est-à-dire, il faut, sorry, I start again in English. We have a duty of coherence, a duty of credibility. Otherwise, even the effort against the terrorism for the peace and for the security doesn't reach any result. I start with to Madam Kersti Kaljulaid, I hope to pronounce correctly, President of Republic of Estonia, and also I have the honor to introduce her as for next President of European Council. So it's a great honor for us to have you today here, and I hope that you can explain us something about your model, your country model. We can say it is a no-paper state in some way, in the sense that the new technology, the green economy, you make a great effort since the beginning of your independence to to transform the public service, the bureaucracy, the education system, and the life of your society in the new economy. And just for some biography of your life, it could be President of Estonia, President of European Council, a long career in politics with 4 children, if I don't. Okay.
Thank you indeed. Estonia will take over from Malta on 1st of July, the EU Council presidency, and we are terribly proud to go this first time. And some of you may know it's a replacement presidency because it was supposed to be the UK presidency, and we should only have started on 1st of January next year. This, of course, means that those arriving in Tallinn in summer and in autumn will find that not all physical objects are ready, but our digital infrastructure is totally ready to host the EU Council presidency, and I am sure it will all make it a little bit clearer how technologically changed or different our society indeed is. But why this is important for women and Women's Forum and also the climate change issue? Because, you know, digital societies where people do not have to go physically everywhere, they fit women's lifestyles much better. For example, if you can name your baby from the hospital bed in the maternity ward, it's much easier than going to the Hotel de Ville or to the city government to name the baby. And this is how it starts, the life of a digital citizen in Estonia. When a doctor enters the information, baby born, a girl, 3 kilos, 50 centimeters, automatically the background, nobody pushes any button, the background of the system creates digital identity for this child, and a new digital citizen is born this way. Now parents can add a name, tag a name to the identity of the baby, and you can, well, then apply for all school, social services over internet. It's liberating, you know. What else it does? It actually makes a lot of jobs in our lives to be geographically neutral. It doesn't matter where you are physically, you can still work. And every woman serving porridge in the morning to their children in Estonia can and does check her emails to make sure where she needs to go next, or maybe she can, after the children go for school, sit down, do a couple of emails, and only then go to the office, if you have a job which doesn't demand physical presence. It will be even more important in the future because we recognize that less and less jobs actually are done geographically in one spot. I am sure among ourselves, if you think about it, there are journalists, probably there are no bookkeepers, but none of those people actually need to be somewhere. They can be everywhere globally. And it's very liberating for women in society, because then you can work and nobody will ask, you have children so you cannot come in, it's a problem. We have to grasp this technology to make sure that the women's lives are getting better. And it's a window of opportunity because we can change the mentality of our societies, saying that now we have digital society, it's an equalizer. You can also say now we have a digital society, how wonderful again for men, and women can also come in. But I think we need to go hand in hand. And indeed, it is of course green. If you don't go anywhere, then you do not emit any greenhouse gases. That goes without saying. On the other hand, not everything in the world is digital. And I would like actually, since we are in Italy and Rome, commend the effort of last Italian governments, where we have seen women in the government in much higher numbers, which shows that political will is all what matters. Technology will not do the change, it is still political will which will matter. There has been more women ministers, and there will be more women ministers also in France and elsewhere, if there is political will. I saw yesterday here in Italian Parliament a wonderful presentation of empowerment for girls, and it looked like this. There were 3 mirrors for the posts where women have never actually held in Italy, President, Prime Minister. And it's a mirror, so every girl can look in the mirror, see her own picture, and underneath it is written President or Prime Minister. I mean, I think they merit an applause for that. Yeah, they are in the Italian parliament, and the president of the parliament, Laura, she's not here, but I felt I made a friend. So, and I wanted to bring this in to tell you that societal change is not going to happen because of technology, but because of the will of the people, also the will of the people expressed through elections towards politicians. And then we can change our societies to be more open to women's participation. Yes, technology helps, and we have the opportunity, but we need to do it. It will not happen all by itself.
We make a second tour of question after. Huh? So the president of Malta. Maria Louise Coleiro Preca, president of Malta. My question is about the role of Malta in the Mediterranean. You are a small country with a lot of problems, but you can have a role in the connection between the south of Europe and the north of Maghreb, particularly in the question of immigrations. Please.
Yes, Malta is at the crossroads of the Mediterranean, or rather the crossroads of two continents, but also probably three continents, one could say. And being in the European Union gives us this knowledge of Europe, but also being in the Mediterranean, very near to Africa, North Africa, gives us this deep knowledge of Africa as well. We have always had this role of trying to bridge the two continents and trying to develop Malta as a hub for dialogue. And even more recently, we have been very tangibly active in this regard. One could mention the Valletta Summit in 2015, where European leaders, together with African leaders, were brought in dialogue in Malta on the issue of migration. During the presidency, from January to June, we have had a number of high-level meetings with regards to migration as well. We have been, together with Italy and Greece, trying to attract the attention of our colleagues in Europe many a time over the years to the issue of migration. Maybe one could say that the countries of the Mediterranean were first to be hit by the phenomenon of migration, and then it was much later that this phenomenon hit the doorstep of our other colleagues in the European Union. So yes, we have been very active with regards to the migration issue, trying to bring people together to understand deeply the phenomenon, but also to try to take the lead on certain initiatives, tangible initiatives. But the issue of migration, one must see it. It creates anxiety to our populations in Europe, but at the other end, at the other side, we need to also understand what is happening, why are people moving? Because to be honest, not everybody does not like to leave his home, most of his family, and move and risk his or her life to find safety. So we need to understand the other side of the coin as Europeans, to really understand what is happening around us. Most of the migrants crossing the Western Mediterranean, which is the deadliest route in the Mediterranean, people like us, humans like us, leaving behind them their countries, their towns, their villages, fleeing for safety. Most of them are fleeing to save their lives because their countries, their regions are in conflict. Many of the migrants that come from other countries are fleeing poverty, which is at times very much linked with climate change, precarity, persecution. And here comes in the issue, to me, of fundamental human rights, that we as Europeans boast that we are the promoters of universal fundamental human rights and freedoms. And at times, I'm a very direct person, so I prefer to say things, look things at the face. At times, I get the idea that some of us in Europe are thinking that our legacy of universal fundamental human rights and freedoms, we can look at it like an a la carte menu. You pick and choose. For me, it's okay. I have the whole of them. But for others, I might decide to pick and choose. But these are universal. These are universal. I'm not eliminating the fact that the phenomenon of migration have created a number of problems, especially for Italy, for example. Of course, we have to admit that there are great problems, but that also stems from lack of solidarity between our family of nations. Because if the 28 countries, or rather 27 countries of Europe, are in complete solidarity with one another, we can manage this phenomenon. I take Germany as an example. Germany has taken the plunge. Germany has taken the plunge. But I think it was also quite visionary, because we have a problem in Europe. We have a problem with our depleting workforces. We have a situation where all the time we discuss the sustainability of our welfare systems, of the sustainability of our pensions due to a depleting workforce. So we need to enhance our workforces. And I think Germany has really had this long-term, not only a humanitarian side to it, but also economic sense and social sense. So the issue of migration is always very complex, always multidimensional, but I think it has to be looked at in a holistic manner. Not many a time we discuss the problems that migrants bring to our countries, and maybe sometimes we tend to ignore or turn our back on the actual problems. Coming from the Mediterranean, we believe that we need to have peace, and then many of the problems will stop there. But again, peace is a big word, and we need to implement peace. We need to work through a bottom-up approach, I believe, and there is where women, I believe, they should come in the equation. We need much more women peace builders. We need much more women to come to the negotiation tables. We need women to be collaborators in peace building. There's this very important saying that if you educate a woman, you will educate the family and the community. And because women are leaders, and we need to bring more women leaders from communities, community leaders, to our negotiation tables to build peace from the communities. It would be okay when our politicians resolve the problems in conflict, but to have sustainable peace, we need to have our bottom-up approach of peace building through our communities.
Thank you very much. Rima Sabah, Syrian businesswoman. Rima Sabah, Syria businesswoman, activist in civil society. She will speak about the worst problem faced to the Europe today, and Syria is the paradigm of error, of lack of coherence, lack of solidarity, lack of strategy, not only for the Europe, but all the civil world. And so the situation is getting worse and worse after 6 years of war. We have a lot of refugees, million of displaced people, and 4,000, half million of victims. So you can speak about the situation because I know that you know very well. You go often, quite once a month at least, from Paris to Damascus. Is not only a long trip, but very dangerous and complicated because the airport in Damascus is quite closed. And so what is the situation and the women in particular, and what you what you can propose for nobody's here at the moment a solution, but we can try to imagine something.
First, I want to speak a little bit about the situation in Damascus, to give you an idea about the situation in Damascus. During the last year, the situation didn't stop to get worse. Even if people are more used to many things, the shell fallings during the day, the sound of bombing, the shortage in water and electricity, and the lack of fuel, domestic fuel, fuel for car, seeing old people and children sleeping in the street, and family living in public garden. We have also a very big problem of unemployment and inflation. And with all the problem, Damascus is safer than other cities in Syria, and many of displaced are still coming. And people try to have a normal life as they can do, going to work if they have one, or to school and university. I'm going to focus more on women in Syria, because we are in the Women's Forum and we are going to speak more about women. The situation of women changed according to the country they are, if they are inside Syria or if they are in countries neighboring Syria, or if they are in Europe. I'm going to focus only on women living in Syria because in number they are the most important. Of course, in all conflict, women and youth are the most vulnerable. But in Syria, we are facing many other problems. First, that the military services is an obligation for valid men between the age of 18 and 45, besides with some exceptions. So most of valid men left the country, or they are in the conflict in the way or in another. The other problem that the most important migration is inside Syria, from a very risky place to the one who is less. So we have many women arriving with their children to a region where they lose already their job, if they have one, and with the lasting of the conflict, they use their saving if they have any, and they lose their client and the job provider. So with time, they become the breadwinner of the family for their children and sometimes for their old parent too. And they lose the support of their relatives because with time, everybody is focusing more on his own problems and own priority. The other problem is, as you know, that the Muslim religion in Syria is, most of people are Muslim, more than 80% of people are Muslim, a religion who allow men to marry 4 women at the same time. And with the conflict, multi-marriage is encouraged by the state and by religious under saving society, kind of saving society. So the honorable solution for women in Syria is to push their daughter to an early marriage and their boy to find work instead to send them to school. That's why it's very important to empower women to find a job by creating in the NGOs who can see the potential of those women and try to give them idea and opportunity to make some product and services and to be more financially independent. That's the importance of empowering women in Syria. And the other, if we want to talk about political problem in Syria, let's say that, as Madam President said, that women are more engaged, less engaged in violence. So they should play a more important role in politics, especially if they becoming the most important economic factor in Syria now. And helping women to be self-independent will push them to send their children for a longer time to school and to be more demanding for marriage. And about a solution for Syria, maybe the peaceful one, it will be the best one. If all nations decide to help us to have maybe a government of transition that gather all the Syrians and to maybe to stop giving weapons to all the parts in the conflict, it will be a good beginning.
Situation still. Bravo, thank you. Thank you very much. Donia Koach, Tunisian entrepreneur, founder of Tunisian Fieres, which is what is
It's a think tank.
it a think tank about
Women, of course.
about women, but in which field?
Women in power.
Women in power. So Tunisia, we can say, this is the other face of the Arab Springs, with many difficulties, but still survive toward a better future. Is exactly the opposite of what's going on in Syria, unfortunately. But the problems are still on the table, particularly for the condition of the women. And so please explain us.
Buongiorno. Thanks
Buongiorno.
of all. I would like to say a special brava to an amazing woman, Chiara Corazza. I'm glad to be here today with women working for peace. The women of my country have fought for so long for peace and are still fighting against a scourge that you and us are facing, that of the terrorist threat. In adversity, Tunisian women had shown courage, but supported by men. The first Tunisian president, Habib Bourguiba, when asked what's the difference between him and Islamists, he replied, 14 centuries. I would say today that what separates us from Islamists and all those people who have adopted their doctrine is more than 3,000 years of history, in which women played a key role in building a country named Tunisia. My narrative is a story of a country which for more than 3,000 years have been striving on building peace. I come from a country located in the heart of the Mediterranean basin, a country that had fertilized the spirit of Saint Augustin, Saint Cyprien, Ibn Khaldun, a country of many cultures, Punic, Romance, Arab, and that multicultural history makes me feel home today at Rome. Thanks to this multicultural history, the Roman Tunisia and its capital Carthage was the best revenge of peace. You will ask me how. First of all, thanks to the religious dialogue. Tunisia were Jewish, then Christian. Carthage hosted the first Catholic church with St. Augustine, and then became Muslim with the foundation of Kairouan. And thanks to the citizenship and to President Bourguiba, who gave to women right to vote, abolished polygamy, and gave us freedom. Yet, this emancipated and avant-garde country at the gate of Europe didn't resist to the terrorist Islamist wave. And we had, in 2011, another coming into power. After the euphoria of the revolution and the end of the dictatorship, I still remember that famous October 24th, 2011, as if it were yesterday. The Islamists came in my country, came into power in my sweet country. And I asked myself, what are we going to become? Will they sweep away the gains of women and establish the Sharia? I thought about my generation and about the next generation. I have rethought the history of all these countries to the vanguards that have rocked. I thought about Iran. I thought about Turkey. And I realized how fragile the peace was, how quick you can fall from prosperity to darkness. Worst, our sweet country was described by the whole media as a terrorist country, dangerous country that you must avoid. This moment lasted 3 years, and it was 3 terrifying years. We had everything: the attacks, the political assassination, the rampant radicalization, the economic crisis, the political crisis, and the touristic crisis. We were discovering the horror of extremism. But, faithful to our history, I would like to say, we fought. Tunisian women fought, and they stepped up to the plate. They defended the very foundation of peace. And I do not exaggerate if I say today that they changed the course of our history. More than 1 million women elected the President Beji Caid Sebsi, pushing the Islamist party to give up the lead of the country. These women had contributed to make Tunisia the first democracy in the Arab world. But we are not an iron fortress, just a society where free men and women are fighting for equality and freedom, and we are still fighting every day, every hour for our security. This fight for peace, my friend, is our common fight. I will say it's the challenge of our century, because we are all in the same boat, exposed to the same risks. Europe is the other side of Africa. And my message today is, let's strengthen our cooperation. We celebrate today the 60th birthday of Traité de Rome, a prodigious success that laid the foundation of a lasting peace. It was signed in a tumultuous context, similar to the one we are living now. 60 years later, the risks are still here. Rome Treaty laid to a path for peace, and we must continue on that path, and even extend it to all the countries that surround Europe, to all the countries which fight alongside Europe against terrorism. The keys for Europe's safety is the safety of the southern shore of Mediterranean, because we share a common history and because our faiths are linked. Our geography, our history, our economic exchange requires us to succeed together. If Tunisia succeeds in its democratic transition, it will strengthen Europe's security and it will send a strong message to the whole Arab world. So let us be the one who, hand in hand, will make the link between the north and the south. The think tank that I have found, Tunisian Fier, which means proud Tunisian, wants to pursue that fight for peace by creating bridges between European and Tunisian women. If they have a common project, if there is economic development, if there is an open education, the peace will be achieved. To conclude, sorry to be a little long, I would like to quote the wise words of a man of peace, a humanist, the Pope François. He said, "We are constantly called to work together in the conviction that the future also depends on the encounter of religious and culture. None of us is an island, autonomous and independent from others. We can only build peace by standing together, including everyone, because peace is a gift, a challenge, and a commitment." Thank you.
Thank you. Syria, Tunisia, immigration. So we have to come back to the Europe, the main problem. So in your vision, what could be the result of your presidency in the next 6 months? What's your main hope?
First of all, I have to say I found your description of both situation in Syria and Tunisia as a paradigm and a source of migration a bit offending. I apologize for that. Syria is a humanitarian catastrophe where people, women, men, children are dying. It's facing brain drain. It's facing losing big parts of its population. And only then we can start talking about what does migration really mean. Same, of course, applies to Tunisia and other African countries. The problem has another aspect and another side. And this is that these countries are losing people who are most entrepreneurial, people who have at least some education. Some of them find really good jobs in Europe, but quite a lot actually do much more simple jobs than they're educated to do for. So it's a lose-lose situation for both economies, European economy and also African economy and Middle East economies. That is why, indeed, we need to solve the issue of how we deal with those people who find themselves stuck in Europe. And here I totally agree, and we undertake to take the files of the Dublin process reform in the European Union over from Malta, where you have made great progress step by step in detailed aspects, but indeed we need to talk seriously and deeply, looking each other into the eyes about the solidarity. Solidarity is something where we need to think together, and we should not threat each other that if you do not take refugees, then you will not get some support from the European Union communities. We should instead put all the discussion on the table. For example, among other things, if we are making people to relocate to the places where they really don't want to go, because I can humanly totally understand, if you have lost everything, you don't particularly want to go to the 5 poorest countries of the Europe. And if you will go because you're desperate, then quite soon after the initial period of support runs out, you start to looking to go elsewhere, to look for other options. And I feel this is also the right of the people to see how they can make their life best because they've already once lost everything. We need to discuss how we can solve those issues, because of course we cannot do it mechanically. We cannot say, yes, people will move to Romania, Bulgaria, countries where the average pay will be lower than, for example, support from the European community. This will not be a fair solution neither. We need to have all those aspects on the table and have a straight talking about how we deal with the people, but we have our European values which underline our European project, and they are liberal, democratic, and humanitarian values. And coming from that viewpoint, we will find the solution. We will do everything to find the solution. We will do everything what diplomacy allows, and we hope that the solution will be found so that people can find either permanent or then temporary place where to hide out until the atrocities are over and the countries can start to rebuild themselves. I also wanted to commend you, President, personally, because I know you have been in Malta actually standing up for liberal values in the society, not only women's rights, but the minorities' rights in Malta as well. And you have actually brought your country with big steps forward in all of those issues, because we know that if women's rights are protected, then also the social rights of the minority groups are easier to protect in the world. And therefore, this is another aspect why we need to forward the rights of the women. There is also the social legacy, which I feel we all share and carry in Europe, in helping to rebuild those countries which have been broken totally by the force which no woman would never, ever unleash. We need to come to solve those issues compassionately from the women's viewpoint, and I'm very happy that in Europe our common foreign policy approach is the hands of Federica Mogherini, a really compassionate lady.
Thank you. Just talking about Federica Mogherini, one of the main issues for Europe is the common defense. This is the main important things to stimulate the solution of the problems. Without European defense, I think Europe doesn't have a role in the world today. It cannot have any role to solve the problem we're talking about. What do you think about this? You?
Yes, I wouldn't speak simply of security, defense on its own, because if we speak on security and defense on its own in isolation, then we will be missing out a whole lot that can direct us to peace. We've been speaking of migration and the many aspects. There are much more aspects, definitely, that need to be covered, and I agree completely with the President of the Republic of Estonia that migration should be an ongoing process, as a process of dialogue between all European countries, but also the countries involved. I do believe that when we share with the people who are really having the experience, then we can become much wiser about how we have to go forward. And let me take a very particular example with regards to the issue of security and isolation. So I'm linking this issue also with the issue of migration, because many a time we do link situations with negative situations with migrants. In 2015 alone, like 10,000 migrants and asylum seeking children disappeared from our soils in Europe. This is an indicator which was brought to our attention by Europol. And Europol chief some time ago was invited to come to Malta on this parallel meeting which my office facilitated together with the Missing Children Europe organization. And it was in parallel with the meeting of informal ministers of justice and home affairs, where Rob Weinert, the Europol chief, said this figure of 10,000 asylum-seeking children and migrant children is only the tip of the iceberg. Only the tip of the iceberg. So, if we speak only of security and not speak in tandem with protection, we will be feeding right through the businesses of probably smugglers. Because where did these 10,000 children, let's keep it 10,000, because that is the only figure that has been given to us. But I will say again, it's Europol chief said this is tip of the iceberg. And it is tip of the iceberg because most unaccompanied asylum-seeking children and migrants don't actually register at entry points in Europe. So this is the reason that there is no sort of trail of the actual amount. These children need protection, not security, at that point in time. And we, as the President has said, this is a humanitarian tragedy. I'm sure that there are many of us who are parents who would want to see his or her children leave home simply either to save his or her life from conflict or else to have a better life. Let me share a very personal experience of mine with you. So I have an only daughter, and she has read for her postgraduate degree in England, and now she'll be leaving again for her doctorate degree. I cannot express myself what I feel, that it will take me some months not to see her physically, because I can see her through Skype, I can speak to her all the time, but my heart, I can't explain my emotions. So imagine if you have to leave your daughter, so she's going to better her life. So I have that to fall upon. That's my comfort, that she will be a better person after her doctorate. Imagine seeing your children fleeing conflict, or else orphaned, running all over the place, trying to come to Europe because Europe would seem an El Dorado for these children. And then have no protection, because we might be thinking of security as our priority. So the issue of security without the issue of protection will never lead us to have sustainable peace in no place. And also in part because peace is not simply the absence of war, the absence of snipers, the absence of whatever. We need in Europe to start building a culture of positive peace by addressing inequalities, by truly developing and effective, inclusive societies where all communities, where all members of our communities, whoever they might be, will feel valued collaborators, valued people, valued people that we can reach out to each other. And that is also where solidarity will start being built sustainably from the roots of our societies and communities.
Thank you very much. Rima, you want to say it again, something else?
Yes, I was
Just short, because
yes,
we are...
2 words. I, of course, agree with all the things you said, but I want to conclude by saying that bringing peace in Syria, we stop at least migration from Syria to other countries, to Europe, and especially to neighbor countries, because people who are living in the neighbors country of Syria are living in very awful situation. And many of Syrians will come back to their country, maybe not all, maybe not the young who are already in school and university, but I'm almost sure that most of Syrians will prefer to come back to their country instead of staying either in Arabic country or even in Europe. So I'd want to thank my friend Chiara, who gave me this chance to speak about Syria, especially on this, with a speaker like you, who understand how is important. Life of people is something very important, maybe more important than economy and finance, because everything is related. But first of all, human being is the most important thing.
Okay. Credo che andiamo alla conclusione, no, della giornata. Sorry, you want to say it again something?
No, just one word about the Libyan crisis, because this crisis had a huge impact. In Tunisia, we had a migrant flow that accounted nearly 1 million Libyan. That's 10% of Tunisian population.
So it was another mistake of Europe, I think,
Yes.
just to be clear.
What was this mistake? And this flow was managed by Tunisia alone. This flow has allowed the infiltration of terrorists and extremist leader, and last but not least, the increase of smuggling, and especially weapon smuggling, because the military arsenal of the Libyan army were disseminated between different groups that had emerged after the fall of Gaddafi. And these weapons are now available in Tunisia and had served on the 3 attacks we had. This new relation between the Tunisian and the Libyan terrorists is very dangerous, because these people come to Tunis and then they go to Europe. So that's why, once again, I would like to say we need to strengthen our cooperation. We don't have tradition in military in Tunisia. We are a small country. So we need to be supported, because the fight is huge. Thank you.
So, there is another short comment of the President of the please.
Just a short comment to make us all hopeful. I remember it was a long time ago, the Millennium Goals were presented on small cards. Everybody had it on their chair arriving at the IMF annual meeting. I read them through and said, okay, let's dream. And we know the Millennium Goals have been actually fulfilled. So if the world sets out to do things better, then we can do things better. And about solidarity, one last word. In my country, our grandparents were people who fled by the boat to Nordic countries, so we totally understand what is going on. And the final remark, no child is born a terrorist. This is something which one general, army general in Europe told me.
We are at the end. There is an. Sorry, please.
And Clara,
It's
please,
very
for
difficult to
bringing
moderate
so
women,
many valid women
sometimes.
together to share. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. There is, I think, there is no conclusion about this argument. We can speak for hours. We spoke with great emotion. We spoke with the soul, I think, about solidarity, about problems of children, problems of population. But the word that I want to say for conclusion is hope. We have to have hope in concrete, to do something. And but at actions, okay, action is more difficult, but hope is I will say before, is the things that never die. Thank you very much.
I don't want to make a speech. I just want to thank this outstanding panel, of course. We knew that peace and prosperity and security, it was so important. But I really would like to thank the acting president of Malta, Marie-Louisa Carrero-Peca. Please applaud them very, very strongly. President of Malta and acting president of Europe. And what a better symbol for the conclusion of our forum to have the acting one and the incoming one. Kerstin, we wish, President of Estonia, we wish you all women here together a big success for this presidency of Europe, and I'm sure that you will put your talent and innovation, creativity, and all this digital that we need to make the world better, because what you say, it's very important for us, for women, it will change life. And allow me to thank my two friends, because they're acting each day for peace, in their way, or how they can, with their means, but they put all their soul, and they are the young generation who are trying to change the world, but they do it on the ground. And really, please, Donia and Sonia, please, could you applause them very, very strong? Of course, I would like to thank Massimo, because it was very difficult to moderate this panel, this very special panel, because, of course, it's women, and women say what they want and how they want, and the subject was right. I just want to thank all of you coming from so far away, from Washington, but especially the Mediterranean friends coming from the other side, because one of the issues today was to create bridges between Europe, this Europe that we want strong, plenty of energy, plenty that make us dream. We want a Europe that it is Europe that women want, for a better word again, and Mediterranean country. We have a responsibility to them all together. And I think that Women's Forum will really build again bridges, strong bridges between Europe and Mediterranean. We are the same people, we are the same women, we experience the same life, we need to help each other. First thing. Second thing that's very important, we talked about shared growth, we talked about finance with a human visage, we talked about cultural dialogue, tolerance. We talked a lot about tolerance. And then today we talked about the research that solves life. We are not researching to go on the moon. We women, we research to save lives, and that's very important. And then, of course, we launched with Laurence Toubiana this manifesto that is very important for the Women's Forum, because we are really very committed to preserve the planet, not only because of the climate, but because it's a choice of society. It's a choice of society that's open, willing progress, willing our children to live in a better world, and a society that wants to be egoist, close on herself, and so on. Then this manifesto is not only climate, it's really choice of society. And we really like to thank all the people there to come and say that the last motto for the Women's Forum, it's all together, engage for impact. We want to be engaged and have an impact. And we can do it only if we do it all together from all the sides of the world. Then please, network, write, social media. I am a disaster, but you are very good for that. Continue to share, but because if we share, we will be stronger. And when women are strong together, we change the world. Thank you so much.